Let's see if this works. You are now live. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Oh, let's see here. That's gonna be too hard to fucking see. Alright, just firing up a quick mission here. It's one that I put together myself. Nothing fancy at all. Just going to do some carrier recovery practices. Get everything set up. Alright, now my carrier is right over here. You can see the wake is right behind them. I've got things set up real quick. My HUD on my left DDI, so when I'm in a left turn, it's easy to reference that if I need to. FCLS on the right side if I run into any errors, which I should not. HSI is down here. I've turned off the moving map. I enabled TACAN on the map itself for the HSI, and I've set up TACAN to 55X, which is what I have the carrier set to. Then I set the course select to what the heading of the carrier is, and to get that, you just actually click on the object on the map that you have created, and you can see it's heading of 319, speed of 14 knots, but the main thing is 319. So that's why I have my course set to 319. When it comes to the TACAN, or the course select of the TACAN heading, and it allows you to line up a lot easier when it comes to the upwind and especially the downwind aspect of the carrier recovery procedures. So typically what I do is I fly in, get to around 2,000 feet, fly around, go through the upwind at 800 feet, which is part of the CAS procedures, 800 feet at 350 knots, and I'll kind of show you guys that what I do. Now, by all means, I am no expert at this, but I've gotten fairly decent about it. And this wonderful skin, let me go ahead and do an external view for you. This wonderful skin was created by Skatezilla. He's on the Eagle Dynamics forums quite a bit, and he posted his skins. It's a pretty awesome skin. So if you want that, if you want the skin, go out to Eagle Dynamics website, user files, and you'll be able to download all of his skins. You can actually search for him by his name. He's got a bunch of great skins out for it. Yeah, the Hornet. Now, one of the things you'll note, you probably won't see, I'll try to reference as much as I can when I'm doing my turn from a beam to actual final heading for the recovery. You'll see me constantly moving my throttles like this as I'm trying to manage my speed and my rate of descent, as well as the speed of the aircraft. Mostly rate of descent when it comes to landing, because remember, your throttle controls your altitude, and your stick plus trim controls your speed. And we'll get into that more. I'm sure you guys already seen plenty of videos talking about the CAS recovery procedures by Jabbers, Red Knight, and a few others. So we're going to put the hook down for the flyby. Lights off means hook is locked and down. Looking for 350 knots at 800 feet. Now, based off what other people have said, to get the spacing right on the approach, I try to get these numbers right here to directly fly over the carrier. And that typically gives me right around a 0.2 to 0.3 nautical miles from the carrier as I approach it. And that's kind of what I've found to be the ideal place. Here I'm actually going to be a little bit outside of that, but that's alright. Right now I'm heading on 319, which is the direction of the carrier itself, not the deck. Remember, this thing's 20 degrees offset. But we're going to fly with the carrier right now. At 2.9 miles, which is the ideal place. Now, once I hit 5, I'm going to go into the turn. Alright, into the turn. Throttle back. Speed brake out. And I'm pulling G's in accordance 1% of what my speed was. I'm backing down because I want to try to be around 1.3 nautical miles from the carrier when I'm on my downwind approach. And I'm going to go gear down, flaps. And the outbound radial is 140, so I'm looking to level out at 140. And we're actually a little high as well. We want to be 600 feet. That's all right. We can fix that pretty easily. Don't let it drop too quickly. That's one thing you got to pay attention to. And we're abeam, so we're turning into the carrier just a little high. So now next we want to be around 480 feet, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, at the 90. The 90 is when this line right here is completely perpendicular to your flight path marker. So I'm now a little low because I had to take everything off. I had to stop flying the plane so I could point that out to you. I'm really low right now. So let's get this back up. So this wasn't that great of an approach because unfortunately I had to take my hand off the flight stick. So right now I'm really high. I can see the ball. And you can see my throttle is constantly moving because I want to maintain the right height or the right rate of descent. And all is red, so I'm low, but that's fine. We can recover from that. And we're trying to get lined up properly. Alright, ball's not coming back. And we actually skipped over, we landed low. That's probably one of my worst approaches in quite a while. And that all happened because I got off on my distance when I was turning into the final. Now one thing to keep in mind, when you bank over, you lose a lot of that lift those flaps are providing for you, and the drag from those flaps kicks in. And that's why your aircraft drops out. It drops out pretty sharp, so you got to remember to apply throttle to account for that. And when you roll wings level, more lift kicks in to offset that drift or offset the drag, and that's why your nose pops up when you roll wings level. And I'm quite low right now, so I'm gonna let that naturally rise up, and I'll reset my altimeter. I forgot to set that to the right altitude. And we're going past. Another thing you look at are my RPMs in the bottom left corner of the screen. You can see how I'm constantly moving it a lot, and that's just to try to, my goal is to stay ahead of the aircraft. So with the F-18, there's a throttle lag from when you actually are adjusting your throttle to when the engines actually spool up and do what you want them to do. So you have to anticipate what's going to happen after it spools up or spools down, depending on what you're doing, and you've got to be planning for what happens after that already before it even reacts to what you're currently doing. And that's why you see me constantly moving it, because I'm trying to constantly stay ahead of the aircraft, trying to predict what it's actually going to do based off of what I just told it to do. So I can see the ball. I'm a little high right now, it looks like. Actually, no, I should be a little low. Yeah, a little low. Whatever the object was behind the iFlow kind of threw me off a little there. Yeah. And let throttle drop out on me. And skipped over again. So with that one there, I applied throttle to get myself back up to the correct glide slope, and I overreacted on how I dropped my throttle down. I held it out for too long instead of trying to anticipate that it was going to fall down, and I allowed my altitude to drop too much. So it was actually dangerous. Should have been a cut to where I was waved off. So if there was actually a human LSO, he would have cut me and waved me off. But what I ended up doing is what they call settling, landing short, and I bounced over the wires. So it's real important to try to hit the numbers at each stage of the way. It just makes it a whole lot easier when it comes to lining up. And I did not get fully, I did not get on the heading of 140 to be on the outbound radial, but that's fine. We can recover from that. Altitude was good. So right now we're on speed, or just a little slow, but that's all right. Right now I'm paying a lot more attention to my altitude, which is just a bit high, just past the 90, which should have been around 480. One thing I want to make sure is I don't let it drop too much, because what I'm trying to do is as soon as I cross the wake is when I hear the altimeter, the radar altimeter warning kick in. That would be set around 370. And so right now I'm high. And right now I know I'm a little high, so I'm going to let it drift a little bit down, but I'm trying to keep my throttle moving. You see I'm on speed, and iFloss has got me on pretty good when it comes to the actual glide slope. Need to line up really quick. And captured. Number 2 wire. Now, as you can see from that approach to landing versus the first 2 or 3 that I had just done where I bolted, had issues. You can kind of see how just the difference from being very close to my numbers all the way through allowed me to have a much easier time to get on the proper glide slope and land properly and actually catch a wire. The only thing I had to work, that last one, the only thing I really messed up on was not getting my outbound radial heading correctly for the downwind, so that I could have a proper turn in and line up on the carrier. But for those of you that have some issues or struggling with carrier recovery, hopefully some of this information will help you out a little bit. And so we're just going to get connected, go to flaps half, reset the trim, and pump it up to 14. We're going to press the U button to get connected to the shuttle itself. And we're going to kick the launch bar up, throttle up. Gear up, flaps up. And so when I do successful carrier recoveries, what I do then is I climb out to 2,000 feet and I try to fly at about 2 nautical miles or more outside of the carrier. The idea behind that is the minimum holding pattern, I think it was Jabbers or AEW had mentioned, is 2,000 feet. That's the holding pattern, waiting for basic permission to land, or waiting for clearance to land. So I try to fly at 2,000 feet and outside of 2 nautical miles from the carrier. I think the actual holding pattern is 5 nautical miles, but if I'm here, then aircraft that are actually in the actual landing pattern, they should be down in this area here. They should be 1.1 to 1.5 nautical miles, 800 feet coming in and around, so I'm well outside of their airspace, and so there should be no chance of a collision unless they're just really off. Now this is just a single player environment, so I can pretty much do whatever I wanted, but I try to fly as much as I can as if I was in a multiplayer environment, just so that I don't have to do things completely differently between multiplayer and single player, and I've already got some type of anticipation of what I need to be doing. It goes back to the old saying from when I was in the military, is you train like you are going to fight in an actual war. No, I fly in single player like I'm actually going to fly in multiplayer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm coming around. Again, I'm outside of 2 nautical miles. It's my big goal to stay outside of the immediate landing area, which again is right in here. And then I am going to come around, descend down to 800 feet, 350 knots, and I'm going to line up on the carrier again to the right side. I do that after every successful recovery, just so I continue to practice this aspect of a case one recovery. Again, I'm nowhere near perfect on this. There are guys who do it much better than me. You only get better by actually practicing it, so that's what I'm doing. So again, I'm looking for 350 knots, 800 feet, heading of 319, which is what the heading of the carrier is. Getting a little fast. And the nice thing is you don't have to be perfect. So if I'm only around 750 feet, okay, big deal. 350 knots, good. And a little off on my heading, but that's all right. And then we look down, verify the deck is clear. And once we hit 0.5 nautical miles, we're going to turn in. There we go. So air brake out, pulling back on the throttle, or excuse me, pull back on the flight yoke. And we're going to go gear down. And while we're pulling back, we're going to go flaps down and throttle up to account for the extra drag and loss of lift from it. Roll out wings level. And we wanted to roll out wings level about 600 feet, so we're a little high, so we're going to go ahead and let that drop down a little bit. We're going to go ahead and work on our trim now. And we are a beam, 1.2 nautical miles out. And we're going to turn in. So we check gear down, flaps down, hook down. Now ideally I like to be 1.3 nautical miles out. When I am actually at the beam position to start my turn, I find my lineups are a whole lot better when I am 1.3 nautical miles out versus closer or further away. Just happen to be able to do it better for some reason. And we let our altitude drop too much. We were not paying attention. So right now I am trying to correct for that. All right. We are back on the right glide slope. So right now we can see the ball. We're a little high. And we're coming in for lineup. And you saw that it just dropped out because I banked it over a little bit, so lose a lot of lift because all the drag. And a little high now, so just want to get this lined up the best I can. And we're going to bolter, which is fine. We didn't want to do any sudden dips in the aircraft to go down. Now right now you can have a very high rated descent and still recover just fine with your aircraft. But I try not to fly that way because I don't know when Ed's going to update the model, the damage model, to where descent rates above 700 feet a second or 700 feet a minute cause structural damage. They may never. And in which case, those who are learning how to land with very high descent rates will be fine. Again, I try not to do that. So we're in a gentle turn out, turning to go downwind, look for 600 feet. We're almost a beam, 1.2 nautical miles. All right, 140 heading, 1.3 nautical miles, good. We're a beam. Add a little power since we're banking. And we are low right now. And that just caused us to pitch up bad. So we overcorrected there, so now we've got to try to manage that. We want to get ourselves down without dropping too quickly because we can be on the other end of that spectrum being too low. And oh, we see the ball, so we're not too bad then. Ball doesn't show us being off that much. Right now it's showing us just a little high. I'm going to come left a little to get lined up properly. bracket right. Our flight path marker, and we're a little low now. Full throttle, and we caught 2-wire again. Hook's coming up, flaps up. So again, these aren't perfect landings. I have no clue how they'd actually be graded. Maybe one day I'll get on the 113th server and fly with those guys so they can give me a proper grading. So what I look for is this little guy here being between this pillar and right around here on my cockpit. That lets me know that I'm right around the right range, so that if I just drop my bar, press the U button, and I get connected. So if you see it's where this guy is pretty much past this fourth dot, or this fourth little hole, you've gone too far. Now it should actually back you up if you try to connect to it, if you don't go too far, but I haven't really checked that out. So I try to get it to where this guy here is right around this corner, so it gets me connected just nice and easy, because there are some servers that don't allow external view, so you can't go into external view to cheat, to make sure you're close enough. I'm going to reset that. And just going to get rid of our bit air message real quick. And it's going to set our bingo because we're getting close. We're going to set it 1800. Next landing, we'll probably go ahead and give us some gas. Gear up, flaps up. And again, we're going to climb out to 2,000 feet, circle around outside of 2 nautical miles. Roll out on heading a 140, which again is the outbound radial, or the I should say the opposite radial of the carrier, which is traveling at 319. And part of the reason why you put in the course heading of the carrier itself, so that when this is vertical pointing down, you know you're going the opposite direction. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can be a little off a few degrees. But the main thing is using these visual cues to help you quickly figure out where you are at, where you need to be, without having to look at the carrier, without having to spend a lot of time, a lot of mental processing, trying to calculate stuff or worry about it. You just have a quick little reference, and you know whether you're good or not. Go ahead and do hook down. And we're looking 800 feet at 350 knots. Okay, just let it dip a little too low. Rear deck is clear. Alright, so we're 1.1 nautical mile from the carrier. Got our trim set. A little high turning in. Actually, we're quite higher, over 200 feet high. So we got to work on that. So we're going to let that dip pretty good. We'll set to 90, which we want to be around 480 feet, and we applied a little too much throttle. And backed off too much that time. See, because I spent so long focusing on that altitude, I allowed myself to not turn tight enough, and I extended my groove way too far. Come right for lineup. And we're a little low. Quite a bit low. Alright. And we're going to bolter. Applied a little too much throttle there at the end. We were coming back on glide slope, and we just went over it. Another thing is, I remember, I think it was Jabbers or someone said you want to wait till you hit 400 feet before you turn back down. I believe that's what they said. So that's what I've been trying to practice myself. And I don't bank as aggressively because, again, I'm trying to get around 1.3 nautical miles. That's my ideal distance from the carrier when I'm downwind. Doesn't always work out that way, but that is what I try for. And you want to be up to 600 feet, so I need to get this altitude in, so I can hopefully get this started off right this time. At 140. And she rose up because I rolled wings level, and we're going banking, so we got to plan for the drop. We're only a little off on altitude right now, so let me just go ahead and keep that center.
Fuel low. Fuel low.
Alright, we're bingo fuel.
Bingo. Bingo.
Not really dropping, so we've got to pay attention to our altitude. So we're high right now. I don't like that. Quite a bit high. But again, we don't want to have it drop too fast. Just got to kind of carefully manage. Let's get our lineup. 350 feet. So right now we're high. We should be a little bit lower. We're getting there. We're getting there. Still a little high. Yeah, we managed to
Bingo. Bingo.
yeah, it wasn't that
Fuel
pretty, but
low. Fuel low.
alright, let's go ahead and
Bingo. Bingo.
get pulled over. We'll get some
Fuel low.
gas, and then we'll
Fuel low.
do it a couple more times. And give us some gas. We get our around 33,000.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
Just waiting on the fuel to come now. Got to check on something real quick, guys. All right. Now you see the carrier itself is pitching just a little bit. Actually, you know what? It's a good thing. Let me go ahead and back out. I'll show you much more pitching of a deck. We're going to kick the wind up. And let's go ahead and adjust the wind down to here. Let's put it at 50 knots. And save. So the way I have it set up is the wind is coming directly across the carrier deck. So it's going to throw things off a little bit, but the everything else should still remain the same. You just have to account for the wind. And you're going to see the carrier pitches a whole lot more with this wind. See, the seas themselves are a lot rougher. Just going to put it in autopilot mode for now while we get everything set up. Alright, so let's go and get our TACAN configured and set up. And let's go ahead and get the scaling set for 10 nautical miles on the scaling and get our course set up. 319. Alright, so double checking everything is set up ready for this landing, and the skid needs to be off. Carrier bypass, or set the carrier. Alright. Autopilot disengage, and we are going to head over to the carrier now. And you see the seas are a lot rougher right now. The carrier deck is going to be pitching quite a bit. It's still not easy to see when you're actually in the air coming in for landing, to actually see the carrier deck pitching. But when you're on the deck, you actually see it. So once I get trapped, you'll be able to see it a little bit. Excuse me, guys. I'm all out of my sweet nectar of Mountain Dew. We have to go get some more here in a moment. Down to 2,000 feet. It's going to go up, down.
Altitude. Altitude.
Doesn't look like much right now. She's also going to be rolling side to side with this current setup right now. And for those who don't know what this is, I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the stream. This is Digital Combat Simulator's F-18 Charlie, Block 20. That's a specific block that they are actually simulating. Eventually, it's going to have a lot more options as way of sensors and weapons. This is early access, so not everything is working in. There are constant bugs, but that stuff comes with early access. So if you're the type of person where small little bugs upset you can't deal with it, you don't want to do the early access stuff. And it's going to go gears down, flaps down. Roll out, wings level, a little high. And wow. We ended up, that's right, I did not account for the wind. So you're going to see some strange stuff happening. So the ended up being further downwind than I was anticipating, simply because the wind was pushing me. I did not account for that, and as you see, it almost looks like I'm sliding as if I was doing a drift in a car. That's because of the wind. That's was it 50 knots of wind that I put in, I believe it was. And so it makes for some really interesting effects when trying to do a landing. And it makes it a whole heck of a lot harder. And so now I'm extremely high, and part of that is simply because I'm pointing into the wind right now. And it's 50 knots, so it yeah, so this is going to be rather interesting. Oh man, probably should have done this a few times, not live streaming. Yeah, as you can see, I'm barely moving, barely catching up to the carrier. And that is all because of the way I have the wind set. Yeah. So right now we need to drop our altitude. So throttle down. That's what happens when you play around with the wind too much, guys. Alright, so let's come right, let's get lined up. Yeah, I'm going to have to reduce the wind on this. I'm going to have to try something else to get the carrier pitching. Just that much wind is not good. I just stopped dead? Really? Well, now that's interesting. Alright, so that we're going to have to count that to a bug. But as you see, the carrier itself is pitching pretty good, and it's rolling side to side. I'm just going to have to play around with the weather settings to get this kind of an effect on the carrier without having that much wind coming at my aircraft. So somehow I'm just stuck. I don't know what the heck happened there. Alright. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream for now. If you have any questions, hit me up. Any suggestions, hit me up. Something else you want to see. If you want to just say I'm a horrible pilot and I can't land for nothing, go ahead and say that. But don't forget to subscribe so you can share all your hate with me all you want.